This bull run is definitely far from over. Hey, this is huge. So for the market makers and this game, you just have to understand it. I don't want to hear, I didn't warn you. This video is going to upset a lot of people because apparently everyone out there is emotionally invested. Food Snickers, what was going on yesterday, please? I just shared an opinion and suddenly it's endless. And I'm never watching another video again, never recording anything again. I'm actually going to do a reaction to that now, but I'll also address the point because that's about the second question that always comes up for me. What's going on with the altcoin season now? Is there anything else coming up? Is nothing else going to happen? And Bitcoin, is it going up or down? Right. Okay, we're going to take a look at exactly this topic today. We're not wasting any time until after the intro. Still, I want to take a moment to thank you for your personal support. It's still crazy. I mean, when you look at the number of clicks, the comments coming in, the likes, so there are really lively discussions. The channel continues to grow, and that wouldn't be possible without you as an individual. So thank you very much anyway. And even if you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. To boost the algorithm, feel free to leave a comment. And what I've just seen is that many of those who watch the videos are not subscribed yet. So if you count yourself among them, then feel free to click that button because then you'll get all the news fresh off the press as long as you've activated the bell. Just a quick note, this video is brought to you by BitMEX. BitMEX, a pretty big exchange that has never been hacked. It has been attempted several times, but it has never happened. And it also consistently provides proof of funds, which is very important because I always say not your keys, not your coins. Yes, but if the proof is there, then the security is guaranteed that you will get your money back in the worst case. If you want to secure a $25 trading bonus now, then check the description. There's the link for it. You support our channel and at the same time you get a bonus. And now let's get straight to yesterday's video and I'm just going to dive into the comments. So, what I fundamentally can't understand, and I keep trying to discuss it, is that theoretically I should just delete and block some people because I don't get why we can't communicate with each other in a reasonable tone. It's probably because most people are emotionally invested in a project in some way. So I don't get it. Hey, I didn't insult your mother, your favorite football team, or anything else. I was just talking about an investment here, and I can only give you this tip. If you're emotionally attached to an investment, that's really bad. It can end very, very badly because only realized gains are real gains. And maybe you should think about that without trying to stir up any hate. That can end very, very badly because only realized gains are real gains. And maybe you should think about that without trying to stir up any hate. If you take a look here, okay, yeah, no clue about the subject. I won't go too deep into it. Just take a look at the video. It's an objective report. And by the way, I never claimed to go into VeChain. I only said that for 99% of all investors out there, this probably won't be the right investment because it's not going to skyrocket like crazy. At least if you want to believe the forecasts. And we're all in crypto to at least take 5, 20, 30,000x. So, and some people are definitely going to be very disappointed. By the way, Manuel, you're of course warmly invited to explain why this is your first and last video. And yes, my heartfelt sympathy. You're missing out on some pretty valuable content. But that's your thing. That's definitely not clickbait. Regarding VeChain at 0.75, I'll get to that in a moment. So we exchanged ideas here as well. I also think it's professional how you responded. So great. I find that professional and something you can work with. But is it realistic that we could reach 0.75 that quickly? I just worked something out briefly. WET has the same chart structure as 90% of all other altcoins. I personally disagree with that. But we can still discuss it as long as you respond here again because it also depends on which altcoins. So I'm going to prepare something quickly and then I'll show you. Basically, we always have several thousand cycles in a bull run, if you will. So, now let's go to 21. We should be around that point where we're in the bull run. And when we see it's a wild up and down, back and forth, everything's tutti frutti. But we have definitely already had an alt season. I've explained this several times in the videos, yes. large cap altcoins come first, so I would definitely include VeChain in that, along with Hedera, XRP, Cardano, Solana, and so on. And if you take a look, many of the ones mentioned, pretty much all of them except for VeChain, have already shown quite strong performance so far. Now, of course, you could also say that VeChain is already ticking up a bit. Yes, that's true. However, we are definitely talking about some values here that could definitely bring about a moon boy feeling. So from that perspective, that's always a question where some people say, yeah, they're going to perform well and there will be fat performance. Yeah, what does fat performance mean? That's the big question. So what do you mean by that? Then feel free to be specific. Like, for example, with the 0.75, then we can take a look at that. In fact, larger these large caps are, the more volume needs to flow in for me to see, for example, a doubling, a tripling, and so on. So please keep that in mind. All right, being satisfied with 0.15, okay, that's a realistic value. That could definitely happen. The question is, should one still invest now? I just explained that it might not make much sense to load all your investments in right now. But, all right, if we go further down here, is there anything else? Yeah, dislike, yeah, got it. Without any facts behind it, I can just block your nonsense. Yeah, man, just keep scrolling. What should I say about that? So, or just bring some facts to the table, then that's completely fine. Then we can discuss that accordingly and just communicate openly about it. Now, let's get to the topic of 0.75 because I've pulled up the chart again. Here was the top, etc. We have a market cap of just over 4 billion. And currently we're at 0.05. It's quite nice. It's okay. Anyone who has 1 cent, for example, who bought, I personally say holding makes absolute sense. Or in the best case, realizing partial profits. So you don't have to sell everything at once. For example, if I've done that with other projects as well. So that's not reprehensible at all. Even if the thing only goes to 0.20, yeah, if you're already up 5 times, why not realize that it can also go the other way? But by the way, just a little note here, if you're more interested in topics like how to invest properly and so on, like an investment guide, I don't have a crystal ball and I can be wrong too, but feel free to write in the comments and I'll work something out. Definitely, if we make a comparison here and say we want 0.75 and calculate that against the market cap, please let's not start with how many of XRP that market cap has. That has nothing to do with the token. Sure, it has something to do with it, but at least here definitely not, because we almost have no diluted market cap. For XRP, for example, many tokens are not in circulation yet. However, and this is not meant to be a criticism of XRP in any way, just so no one jumps up and down, by the way. There's a video coming out tomorrow, and I can tease that a bit, about how you can safely increase your XRPs by 100%. So now some of you should really pay attention who say, yeah, I'm just holding right now, but why hold if you can still increase your amount? That's way cooler without having to do much, but we'll get to that in a bit. Good morning. In any case, VeChain would need to rise to the market cap of Dogecoin to reach that $0.70. So I believe we were just talking about $0.70, or we were talking about 0.75. So that means all in all, okay, there should still be a bit happening because Dogecoin is currently in 7th place. Everyone can question how realistic that is and how quickly it will happen. Now let's get into the topic of reactions to this video. Still, I'm always glad about that, but a bit of constructive criticism would be really cool at this point. So even if you like the video up to this point, feel free to leave a like, and as I said, you can also write down below how you see it. It's perfectly fine to be completely against it and hate on it, and then say something negative like, you're so bad, just stop making videos, or maybe it makes more sense to just communicate openly. I don't just pull this stuff out of thin air. I do my research, and there are a few hours behind that without going into too much detail. Now let's take a look at how this altcoin season is structured in detail. Whether they can still come and what is responsible for that and what might be different in this cycle. And let's start with the first chart that I usually don't show at all, namely the Bitcoin rainbow price chart. Why Bitcoin? Well, it's relatively simple. Everything else reacts to Bitcoin both positively and negatively. And that's why Bitcoin is the leading currency, even though I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist myself. But it definitely makes sense to look at how Bitcoin reacts in some way, because then we can also estimate what happens with the altcoins. We haven't reached the critical area yet. In 2013, we were past the target, deep in the red zone. During the last bull run, there was potential for a 50% increase. It's just a chart, no guarantees. So if we take a look at what happened back in 2013, we were already past the target, or here, we were also deep in the red zone. And even during the last bull run, you could say that there were still a few octaves higher possible. Almost another 50% on top of what we have now. But as I said, it's just a chart, so that doesn't guarantee that it will actually happen. Now let's move on directly. But as I said, it's just a chart, so that doesn't guarantee that it will actually happen. Now let's move on directly. The liquidation heat map, if you watch my videos more often, you'll see that I always include it. And I can tell you the ones who are really making big money right now are the market makers. Why? Well, they can really drive this ping pong game up and down beautifully right now. I'll show you a few other factors related to that shortly. And I can only tell you that they're doing this on purpose, because the longer they stretch this cycle where nothing is really going up or down, more chance there is that over-leveraged positions will get liquidated. And the nice thing about it is, especially this range where we're currently moving up and down, if you take a look at what happened in the last 24 hours, what's going on there? Hey, there's attractive liquidity up there. But down here, it's almost even more tempting. Which is why, oh, what a surprise, the chart is currently drifting a bit downwards, around 97. And if we take a broader view of the whole game, let's say the last 48 hours where things were picked up, it's gigantic. So for the market makers, because don't forget one thing, retail investors are definitely not supposed to come out as the winners here. It's about the market makers. So that means it's important to understand what the market makers are up to. You'll never see everything clearly, but at least that's relatively easy to look at. And if you're just blindly in love with your cryptocurrency saying, I don't want to sell it, oh, it's so cute, then it can really backfire on you, because you can often become easy prey. And to explain the over-leveraged positions to you briefly, it's quite simple. Wherever you've seen massive increases, like here for example, or here, it always went back to the original value, 1,000. Why? The market makers want fresh liquidity in the market. How great would it be if those positions get liquidated? Liquidity is picked up, liquidation is carried out, and that's quite tasty. But how great would it be if those positions get liquidated? And right here, there's often the risk that many over-leveraged long positions have been opened, possibly even thousands, and then you just turn the tables and push them out again. That can happen, for example, right here, and bam, liquidity is picked up, liquidation is carried out, and wow, that's quite tasty. And you just have to understand this game. These are the market makers. This can happen right here, and bam, liquidity is picked up, liquidation is carried out, and wow, that's quite tasty. And you just have to understand this game. These are the market makers. And if you don't want to believe me, just take a look at these evaluations to see how much is being liquidated per day right now. And the longer such a cycle lasts, more interesting it becomes, of course. So you shouldn't underestimate that. So it's a bit shady. But on the other hand, you have to understand that there's a lot of money at stake, and you can easily pull it out of the retailers' pockets if they don't get it. By the way, I can also give you a tip here. I will never take credit for someone else's work, so just a heads up. I have my own YouTube channels where I gather some information, and a few clips from this video come from Crypto Wolf, who explained it really well. Feel free to subscribe to him. He's already quite big at this point, and as I said, in my opinion, he has real expertise. He has a cool channel, and I like to check in on it every now and then. I want to briefly show these complete dry spells again, where we start to think, is there still any progress being made? Because we're back to the same old story. We all want to get rich quickly, easily, and simply. And it's of course boring when we have a dry spell like this for over 200 days or even 60 days, like here with 220 days, where it feels like nothing is happening. But that's exactly what's interesting about it, because right now, if we take a look, the market isn't really overheated at all. But we're talking about a completely different volume that's at play here. And this completely different volume is what makes it interesting for the market makers. So I can only give you the tip to invest without emotions. Emotion can be your biggest enemy here and lead to the largest liquidation of your positions. In conclusion, I have the top secrets for you. Now let me show you 2 indicators that will allow you to see exactly when the bottom has been reached. So basically when we will enter a bull run again, to enter a bull market. And of course, that's the perfect opportunity for how you should invest, meaning when you should get in, but on the other hand, also when you absolutely need to exit the market, 2021. And you can see it here, at least in this one chart, you can see in green exactly when the bottom was reached, or rather was. And if you take a look, as you can see at this right over here, we basically reached the absolute low for Bitcoin, and everything else derives from that. So if you use this chart and then look at it, okay, I'm not going to go in the first month. This is a monthly view. So in the second or third month, you're already pretty close to the bottom. So you could say that theoretically, starting from April, if you take it from January 2023, we started back in a bull market. Yeah, maybe some people wouldn't have thought that. Now you're probably asking yourself the crucial question. Wait a minute, I understand that so far, but when is the end reached? When should I definitely get out? Well, and there we have this shift again, meaning money flows out of Bitcoin into the altcoins, which means that the altcoins tend to start racing when Bitcoin has reached its peak. Historically, that's how it was, so that doesn't mean at all. Just to clarify, it's really important. Just because I'm saying something or someone else out there is saying something doesn't mean it will actually be the case. We can only draw some values from the past. This bull run is far from over. Historically, you can see the bottom where the crossover changes direction. Look at the yellow line rising above the red one, then bam, we had the top. And why is that? Well, so we have these different trend lines here, and if you look at the whole thing historically, by the way, you can always see the bottom again because that's where the crossover goes in the other direction. If you look at this yellow line, which then rises above the red one, then bam, we had the top. Similarly, it continued like this here. Now, there are also what we can call fake breakouts, because one might have thought that everything converges here. That didn't happen. COVID probably played a role in that. 2, we were roughly in that range. So when did it all roughly start? When was that? March, around March 20th, something like that. Although it was already starting to pick up here, so that must have been the dampener for why it didn't continue further. Definitely, you can see an intersection of these 2 trend lines here. And now let's go up there. Whoa, dude. There's still quite a gap between them. And now we shouldn't forget that this doesn't mean the red line will stay in place. So right now the red line would be almost at, but we shouldn't forget that when the price rises here, this line also significantly increases. So just take a look at this rise and what the yellow line has pulled along with it. So based purely on this line, we are definitely still a bit away from the top of the bull run. But as I said, that's still a bit like looking into a crystal ball. Well, I also follow it on other channels, and they keep talking about where further big profits can definitely be realized. That sounds pretty intense at first, because we're not there yet. But it can also happen relatively quickly. But nonetheless, based on that calculation, we still have a bit of room. And that means, of course, as long as Bitcoin hasn't seen its top yet, we also haven't entered an altcoin season. And now I'm really curious about your thoughts. So feel free to write your thoughts in the comments, but please make it constructive criticism about what you think and what your opinion is. Is there going to be an altcoin season or not? What do you think about VeChain? So let's definitely discuss that. As I said, just a little teaser. Tomorrow there's going to be a video on how you can passively increase your XRPs without any risk. Now that's a big deal. And of course, a few more updates about the news and everything that's happening. Otherwise, I can give you the tip that if you haven't seen the last XRP video yet and why we could be sitting at nearly $5 by January 15th, then I would definitely check out that video. That's all the information on that. Otherwise, we'll see each other tomorrow in the next video. Until then, all the best.